welcome back to another episode of Why I Love BNI, your podcast spotlighting different businesses and different chapters on what they love about their business, serving their community, and of course, being a part of the BNI family. So today, I'm super excited to be joined with my guest, Mike. Mike, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm super excited. Mike and I had a great one-to-one. I think last week is when it was. And he was just sharing with me all about his passions, how he helps families, and what's really important to him in his business. So I'm really excited for you to just kind of take us away. So why don't you just kick us off and tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people?
As a mortgage loan originator, I help people buy houses. So, since 1992, I have talked to people who want to buy a house or refinance a house if they currently own one. But for the most part, I help people that want to achieve the American dream of home ownership. So, I get information from them. There's never a cost or obligation. It's usually a 5 to 10 minute phone call. I can do a soft credit pull. That way it has no effect on their credit score. And that will allow me to get back to them within a few hours typically and let them know what their mortgage options are, as far as what they qualify for, price-wise, what that monthly payment is, how much money they need, whether they qualify for any down payment assistance programs. So I kind of do a full dive into what their options are, and then they can make decisions from there. So again, I started in 1992 in Northern Virginia, and I started back before cell phones, and I did have a pager though, but when fax machines still had the real glossy paper in them, and so it's been a third of a century, and still going strong.
I love it. I know for a fact that this is great. So I know a lot of people in the mortgage space, and I've known them for a while. And obviously, I'm pretty young, right? I wasn't there for a lot of this, though I've learned a lot through secondhand. So being a part of the mortgage industry, as long as you have, how have you seen a change? I mean, there's the obvious one with the whole license, or is that realtors? I can't remember. But either way, I mean, I'm sure the industry has just completely evolved within your eyes. I'd love for you to
It,
walk us through some of your feelings on those changes.
Yeah, it definitely has. When I first started out in the early 90s, the closing date was merely a suggestion
Mm,
because everybody understood that we had a lot of things to do, like verifying employment, verifying assets that we could only do through the US mail. And so we had to mail out forms to employers who would fill them out and mail them back in the US mail. And so it took a lot longer back then. You couldn't really go from start to finish in 3 weeks like you can now,
mm,
because we were kind of at the mercy of employers and the mailman. But it was also back then were really no cell phones. So the urgency was not as strong. It was not as deadline oriented of a business. And also, I think the other big change was back then, a person looked at a mortgage file and made a decision such like, well, do we think this customer is going to pay us back if we lend them money? And it really was just a gut feel from the underwriter
mm.
about, are we going to get our money back if we lend this person money? And now it doesn't work like that as much. It's very, some mechanical, calculating process. The US government buys or guarantees almost all mortgages now. So the US government has a role in how this works. So the government has formulas that we have to use to calculate somebody's ability to repay us. Whereas before it was just kind of a gut feeling by an underwriter.
I didn't even know that. That's so interesting. I know that the mortgage industry has gotten a lot more regulated over the past few years. I want to say since maybe the 2000s, possibly, or at least 2005, I think is kind of numbers coming to me. But I didn't even know that. That's so interesting
Yeah,
to
it
learn
has
just
in,
about. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
No, I didn't.
Macy,
I
I
have nothing
interrupted you
intelligent to
there.
say about this.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. In 2005, um, there were 9 forms to sign upfront to disclose mortgage information to the customer when they applied for a mortgage loan. And over time, that's evolved to about instead of 9 forms, there's over 50 forms
Whoa.
with most types of loans. And now, back then, everything was done in person. Even in 2005, most everything was done in person. And now pretty much everything is docu-signed online. A lot of times I don't meet the customer until the closing.
Yeah, which is really special. You shared with me that as often as you can, I know sometimes you do some loans outside of your region in Florida and it gets a little bit tricky, but you do try to be there for most closing dates, which is very unique to some mortgage lenders and honestly even realtors, right? Where they go, "Oh, it's definitely going to close. I don't need to be there." But, there's a sense of security about being like, "Mike, trust me, Mike wants to be there and make sure everything goes smoothly."
Absolutely. Thanks for pointing that out. I do like to be there just in case they have any questions at closing. I'm there in person. Also to let them know that my job does not end on closing day.
Mm,
Since I'm the one that got them that loan, I'm always available to answer questions even years later. Or if things happen like their homeowner's insurance increases, I can help them try to get a better policy years after closing. I also follow up with people after they close to make sure that they have filed a document in Florida called the homestead exemption form, which saves them money on their taxes. But I like to go. It's a happy time. The closing is just a happy time for people. And so, and again, anymore, it's the one time that I get to meet them in person.
wow, that's really special. So I'm so glad that you talked about it. Because when you shared that with me, I'm like, wow, that's great to hear that it's not just, another transaction for you. It's a relationship that you want to continue building even after the loan has gone through and maybe, they're close to paying it off or something like that. You're there every step of the way, which is really special for me to hear. But switching gears just a little bit, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your story about getting involved with BNI. Who was the first person that invited you?
So Rob Kurtzreiter, who's now the president of our chapter, brought it up a couple years ago. And in the summer of 2023, I came to visit the BNI. I really knew nothing about it. Um, I mean, absolutely nothing about it. But knowing Rob, I just said, sure, Rob, if you think it's worth my time to explore, then I'll do that. So I came to a meeting and then I came back the next week and it turns out where there was an opening for me to apply. I did and joined the group and I've loved it ever since. It's a great way to start my Wednesday mornings.
Oh, that's great. And it's awesome that you found a spot so quickly. It's always I feel like it's usually financial advisor, realtor, and lender are the first three to go at any given time in any chapter. So it was kind of like fate that you got there and you got that spot from someone that you respect so highly.
Absolutely. It was, and it's been great for my business. And, I always leave there on Wednesday mornings energized and glad that I went. And I picked something up, not just, yeah, I not only get to share my business with 35 other people at one time, but I learn about their business and I pick up things that they say and how they handle situations and how they grow their business. So it's been very educational for me.
That's amazing. Before we close it out, number one, I have to say thank you so much for coming on. You've been an amazing guest, and it's really special to hear all of your passions about your business and, of course, now in BNI. But before we close out the podcast, do you have any, I'm sure you have so many, but is there any one story that's kind of sticking out to you as like a BNI success story, maybe with a referral, with a client, or anything like that?
So it's really just the BNI success. As I mentioned before, there's really no other place where I can go make 35 sales calls all at one time. So every Wednesday morning, I get to stand up for 55 seconds, share with people what's new in the mortgage business. And I'm so highly leveraged that I consistently get referrals from my BNI group. And when I say consistently, I want to say multiple times per month, I will get referrals from my BNI group. Sometimes it's just people that need help changing insurance companies and they want a mortgage guy to look at their monthly statement, or it's questions about dropping PMI. So it's not always for a new customer, but the success is just in the volume of calls that I get.
Mm-hmm.
Being in sales, those you know that for every new call that you get, it's a new contact. My son is in the business, and I was telling him potential customers are everybody that you'll ever talk to is a potential customer. So
Wow.
it really just makes my phone ring. I've had months where I had 3 closings for well over $1 million in mortgage volume just from joining the BNI. So it's been very fruitful.
That's amazing. Well, Mike, you definitely deserve it. And I think it's a huge testament to you and your character and how you run your business that you are getting this much business, these many clients is I think what I meant to say grammatically. Um, but thank you so much for coming on, sharing a little bit about your story. This is really incredible. And I just really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, Macy. I appreciate your time just as much. It was fun.
Oh, of course. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And to everyone watching, I really appreciate you as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye.